True Detective, everyone spoke about how it was so different and revolutionary in terms of murder mystery. What do you think, as the creator, you brought to the table as at being completely different?
I still don't understand what was so different. You know, I really don't. Like, two cops riding around in a car and they don't quite get along. You ever seen that before?
So it didn't exactly reinvent the genre. On a surface level, it seems to follow the structure of every other prominent detective story. Two disgruntled cops who bicker like an old married couple but have each other's backs when it comes down to it, hunting down a mysterious serial killer with many other genre conventions sprinkled in. What makes True Detective feel so fresh is its excellent character development, which functions as a masterclass in how to write compelling characters. Let's start by looking at intention and obstacle.
Rather than kind of tell the audience who a character is, I like to show the audience what a character wants. And it all boils down to intention and obstacle. Somebody wants something standing in their way of getting it.
This writing technique shows up in a few different ways. Characters can misunderstand another's intentions, which itself presents a formidable obstacle. Other times, one character's intentions become the obstacles of another. And often, at times, the biggest obstacles the characters face are of their own making. If you pay close enough attention, you'll notice that this format holds up for every character interaction on the show, even the seemingly insignificant ones. This is how you ensure that every character feels like a living and breathing person. We all have wants and desires, and we all face struggles in chasing after them, so that needs to be reflected when writing characters. That is what good writing looks like. Here's showrunner Nic Pizzolato discussing what bad writing looks like.
What it looks like to me, and it's people running around delivering information. I'm doing the typing, and you know, like there's obviously a plot at work here, but there's no life. You know, when you're writing comedy, whether it's like, wait a minute, is this just people standing around telling jokes, or are there actual human beings engaged in action, right? And the humor arises out of that. So in my line, it would be like, wait a minute, is this just people walking around trading information, or is it's not yet people living with each other and against each other?
I think a good example of a movie that did this poorly was Rogue One. It's a fun movie with a lot going for it, and as a huge Star Wars fan, overall I was pleased with it, but the only character I really felt anything for was K2SO. Most of the sequences felt like they were put there to serve the purposes of the writer and not the characters. Then again, this is director Gareth Edwards discussing his approach to filmmaking.
The way I like to work is you try and come up with visual milestones of like, well, I'd love to see this, and I'd love to see this, and I'd love to see this. I'm not sure how they all connect. And then what you do is you create visuals of things that would be great, and then you try and find a way of linking them all. And
this is a mistake. It can grant you some visually pleasing set-piece moments, and Rogue One is full of them, but when the plot is motivated by a writer or director's aesthetic needs instead of character motivation, something just inevitably feels missing. Another example I would point to are the latest two Alien films, where we're expected to believe that these are the best and the brightest that humanity has to offer. Skilled professionals visiting an alien world for the first time, and they go and do stupid crap like this.
Now, I often talk about what I consider to be the most important element of good writing, the mark of a really good storyteller, which is that plot comes from character. You create a goal for your hero, which will eventually force that person to deal with their deep weakness. If you do that, the plot comes from the deep source of the character, and you've told a great story.
All plot progression should come from character motivation and action, because as Nic Pizzolato states,
the only place anything ever comes alive is in character.
If we look back at the idea of intention and obstacle, I mentioned that a lot of the obstacles the characters face are self-imposed. This is what John Truby was referring to. Those fundamental character flaws that will be corrected over the course of the story. They both have their fair share, but in spite of that, we know that they are good men. So we want them to succeed, but we don't want to know that they're going to succeed. We want it to be a struggle, and we want there to be the possibility of failure. because it'd be pretty boring if we knew the outcome right out of the gate. I think this is why the show is structured the way that it is. We start off in 2012 and have most of the story served through flashbacks, starting in '95 and working our way back to the present. Doing this means that we know some things for certain. Firstly, that they've survived this far, but we also can ascertain other information, like the missing wedding ring hinting at Marty's coming divorce. So when the narrative shifts back to the present after Rust and Marty have finished their interviews, everything that happens after that point is entirely up in the air. This is a powerful writing trick to keep an audience on edge, because in earlier episodes there's no real danger. No matter what sort of situation they find themselves in, we know that they at least survive. But that is not the case for the final 2 episodes. All bets are off. They might live, they might die, the killer might get away. Anything can happen because we're not catching up to the timeline. We've caught up and are moving forward into uncharted territory right alongside the characters for the first time in the whole season. So even though standard protocol for storytelling says that they'll both be fine, we have every reason to suspect that they won't be. Considering the anthology format of the show, there's no reason that they couldn't have killed them both off, and I know that's what a lot of people were hoping for, but that was never the point.
Were there versions of that episode 8 script where Woody and Matthew's character died? And if
No.
And why not?
Well, because I think the vision that created the story was dictated by the characters and how they behaved in the circumstances I had set out for them. And, it was certainly something I considered, but the trajectory of their personal arcs and where the journey took them was much more interesting to me with them left alive and altered in some way.
Ultimately, what we all want from a finale is to tie up any important loose ends and to deliver a satisfying conclusion to the story. And that's exactly what this finale gives us. But really what we want from a mystery, anyways, is to be surprised. And I think that the last episode gives us the biggest surprise of all. 2 incredibly stubborn old men who finally change their ways.
I could feel, man. And I knew my daughter waited for me there, because I was a part of everything that I ever loved. Didn't you tell me one time at dinner, once maybe, about you used to make up stories about the stars? I tell you, Marty, I've been up in that room looking out those windows every night here, just thinking, it's just one story. The oldest. Light versus dark.
Well, I know we ain't in Alaska, but it appears to me that the dark has a lot more territory.
You're looking at her on the sky thing.
How's that?
Once there was only dark. Yes, any lights winning.
I think the conclusion of the story is much more satisfying this way. They both confront their deep character flaws and correct them in the process of attaining their major goal, just like John Truby discussed. Every story is about getting characters from point A to point B, from the Dora Lang murder to Carcosa. The story is everything that happens in between, and as I covered, a good story has to come from the characters. This will happen organically through establishing a character's intentions and obstacles and putting them in situations where they have to make a choice. Like in episode 5, when Marty kills Reggie Ledoux, it uses the character's weakness to justify a necessary plot point. From a story perspective, we know that Reggie has to die, or he could reveal the secrets of the Yellow King 3 episodes too early. Having it play out like this satisfies the needs of the plot without betraying the character. This ability to disguise plot progression as organic development of a character's motivations really is the mark of a great writer and a great story. How it could take a pretty standard formula that we've all seen before and turn it into something that feels new. Thank you for watching my video. I'm trying out this new end screen. Take a note from Nerdwriter and lessons from the screenplay. Something I was thinking about doing for a while, so I thought I might as well just give it a go. This video was sponsored by Dollar Shave Club. If you go over to dollarshaveclub.com/filmradar, you can sign up for your first month for just $1. In the box, you're gonna get a razor, you're gonna get some extra blades, as well as some shave butter. I've tried it out myself and it's actually really, really great. I have really sensitive skin, so I get pretty picky when it comes to this sort of thing, but I have to say, it gets the thumbs up from me. When you sign up, you can cancel anytime. There are no hidden fees, so it's just really non-committal. You can try it out, and if you don't like it, you can always change your mind. It's a really great way of helping out the channel, and it's a really great way of helping out yourself. So go over to dollarshaveclub.com/filmradar and start your trial today. Also, this episode's featured video is a music video that was directed by my brother, and I think it turned out absolutely amazingly. I'm not just recommending it to you because it's something my brother made. I'm recommending it to you because I actually think that anybody would and could enjoy it. He worked really hard on it for a really long time with basically no money to invest into it, and I'm just really impressed with how it turned out, and I think you guys should check it out. So if you like the song that you're hearing right now, you should check out the music video, and you should check out the album that the song is featured on. You can stream the whole thing for free on Bandcamp right now, and if you're into Flying Lotus or Radiohead or anything in that vein, then it's definitely something worth checking out. As always, I have to give a huge thank you to the people supporting me on Patreon. You guys are helping me get that much closer to making this a feasible career, and I cannot thank you enough for helping me achieve that. And of course, thank you guys for subscribing, for commenting, for sharing. That all really helps out the channel as well. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.